In this lesson, we are going to learn main parts of the human brain. So we have already learned some of the parts of the human brain, and we continue again same thing to learn the main part of the human brain. Okay. The first one and the main part of the brain is cerebrum. The biggest part of the brain is the cerebrum. So what we can learn about cerebrum. Now here is the part of the brain, cerebrum. So if I simplify this, I can draw it like this: cerebrum, and brainstem, and the other one is cerebellum. So here is the cerebrum, cerebellum, brainstem. So these are the three main parts: cerebrum, cerebellum, brainstem. 1, 2, 3. So it's easy for us to remember these three main parts of the brain. Then we are going to see more about the cerebrum. Okay, now when we look cerebrum is divided into two, and one part is called hemisphere. This is the second part. So each half is considered as cerebral hemisphere. Cerebral hemisphere. Okay, now millions of neurons, they make this cerebral hemisphere, and after that we can see between these two. So I'm going to separate these two. So there is a connection between these two. So this connection is nerve fibers like this. It connect from each other. So if this is consist of nerve cells, this side also nerve cells, and the fiber of the nerve cells which connect together like this, and then they make this a bundle of fibers, and this is called corpus callosum. Corpus callosum. So corpus callosum represent the connection between two hemispheres. So these are nerve fibers, because cell body of the neurons located in the cerebrum hemisphere, and it's a axon or fiber joined together to make these bundles. So this is called corpus callosum. So we haven't learned about the neurons, but basically the neurons looks like this. So this one is a cell body, and this part is called axon. So cell body is usually gray color, axon is a white color. So collectively axon form this bundle, we call it corpus callosum. Okay, another important thing we can see, this cerebral hemisphere has many foldings like this. So there are foldings to increase the surface area. For example, if you look other way, it's like this. So surface level, it's like this. So this is the surface. And you can see the foldings. Here is a folding. So all the surface, there are foldings like this. And these foldings increase the surface area. Here again, we can see the brain. The colored area represent the cerebrum, cerebral hemispheres. And you can see many foldings. And also, we can also notice there are four colors. This one, this one, this one, and this one. Now, why we have these four areas? Because again, the cerebrum, we're going to divide into lobes. So first one is a frontal lobe. So you can see it's a separations like this, and this is called frontal lobe. And the next one, here, this one, the last one, corner one, is called occipital. Occipital lobe. And the rest of the two, temporal and parietal lobe. Temporal lobe and parietal lobe. So we can notice these four lobes in the cerebrum. And these lobes, so I make a small mistake here. So this should be temporal and this should be parietal. Yes. Okay, so each lobe has specific function and they involve with main function and there are additional functions. For example, if we take occipital lobe, this one is responsible for mainly vision and this one mainly responsible for hearing, and the frontal lobe is a higher functions. Higher functions mean language, memory, intelligence, and like this. And frontal lobe, temporal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe. So there are four lobes of the brain. So each lobe responsible for a function. Okay, next we're going to see uh, a small difference between two words. So what is the two words? One is cerebrum and the other one is cerebral cortex. Right, we use these two words often. So cerebrum, as we learned from the beginning, is the largest part of the brain. Then it represents this hemisphere. Cerebral cortex is the outer layer of the cerebrum. For example, if we see a cerebrum like this angle, so this is cerebrum, and this outer layer is called cerebral cortex. So outer layer is called cerebral cortex, and here you can see how the two hemisphere occupy in the skull, and we can also see many foldings, and in the middle there is a big folding in which we can see the corpus callosum. Okay, now when we look the cerebral cortex, we can find three main areas. So what are the three main areas? So one area like this area is one, and another one like this. So then the other one, which I don't color, or maybe I use a yellow color, is a third area. So let's name it now. So this one is one area, this one is one area, and this one is a one area. The red color area is sensory area, and the blue color one is motor area, sensory area, motor area, and the other one, uh, which is accessory area. So sensory area, as the name says, it is connected with the senses. So what are the senses? For example, pain, and then skin, we get this pain, or any other part of the body pain, and vision, hearing, smell, taste. So these are the well-known senses we have: vision, hearing, smell, taste, and also the things like a pain, cold, and like things we get. These are the senses. And the motor area, which is controlled for the muscles, voluntary muscles function. So voluntary muscle function. Voluntary muscles means skeletal muscles, bone, the legs, and the hand and the face. We have this kind of voluntary muscles, and the brain, this blue area responsible for the motor functions. And sensory, what are the senses we have? Seeing, vision, hearing, smell, taste, and pain. Cerebral cortex, three parts: sensory, motor, and the remaining part is called association area. Okay, right. Sensory, motor, association. Sensory, motor, association. Now, association area, which is responsible for the higher functions such as memory, intelligence, emotions like things. So, memory, intelligence, emotions. So, these are the higher functions, and association area responsible for the higher function. Collectively, the cerebrum, which is responsible for the most of the functions of our body, motor, sensory, and rest of the higher functions determined by the cerebrum. Okay, here again, we want to remember as much as possible these brain structures. So these kind of a 3D pictures can help. You get the blue color one this side, and the other side, the pink color one, is the right and left hemisphere. So in between, we see a small gap, and this gap is filled with the corpus callosum, the connection between right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And bottom we can see the brain stem, and this one is the cerebellum. Okay, now we're going to again look the cerebral cortex. So, as I mentioned you before, so if we can cut the brain in different angle, now in this case, we just want to cut this angle inside like this. So we cut this angle, and then we see the brain like this. So one part of the brain, and here we can notice the cerebrum, and left and right cerebrum, and here the cortex is the outer layer is cerebral cortex. Here again another picture. So then you can notice this is a coronal plane. So here in this picture again I mentioned how it cut. So the angle is like this, and it's a coronal plane. And we look structure of the brain, we can notice the gray color area is the cerebral cortex, and the white color area represent again part of the cerebrum, and in between here you can still see ventricles filled with the cerebrospinal fluid, and these are the infoldings. So here example, folding, and here's a large folding like this. So this is the cerebral cortex. Okay, again, another picture to show the area, for example, the motor and sensory area. So as I mentioned you before, if you look this way, so the outer margins, which is responsible for this outer margin is this one, and responsible for different functions: sensory, motor, and associate function. Sensory function, motor function, associate function. So here we can see the cortex, blue color area, and brown color area represents sensory and motor part of the cortex. Okay, again here I'm going to show you a different picture. If we cut the cerebrum, the ring-like red color ring around the cortex is sensory, and the blue color one responsible for motor function, and the non-colored area responsible for associate function. And this also associate function. Okay, again, we can recap. So cerebral function is sensory, motor, associate. Sensory responsible for all the senses: smell, taste, pain, vision, and hearing. Motor voluntary muscles associate higher functions like intelligence and emotions, reasonings, logical thinkings like things, all responsible for the associate area. Okay, this is all about the cerebrum. Now we are going to learn the next structure is the thalamus. So how we find thalamus? We try to do it like this. So I sketch again the brain. So this represents the cerebrum and cerebellum and the brainstem. So always it is better that we try to remember these main three parts, and after that we try to go into details. So that would be the easiest way to remember the parts of the brain: cerebrum, cerebellum, and brain stem. Okay, now when it comes to brain stem, so what we can notice from the brain stem, so it is uh, the end part is connected to the spinal cord, then medulla oblongata, and pons and midbrain. So this one connected to the spinal cord, and this one is medulla, oblongata, and this one is pons varoli, and this one is a midbrain. So I could also include hypothalamus and thalamus. So this is the hypothalamus and thalamus. Hypothalamus. And next thing we're going to see on the top of this midbrain, we can notice the location of the thalamus. And this represents the connection between two hemispheres, corpus callosum. So this is corpus callosum. Okay, right now we're going to learn thalamus. This is the thalamus. So this area represents the thalamus. So now you know what is the location of thalamus. So it is just below the corpus callosum. So corpus callosum connect the two hemispheres, and under that, beneath that, we can see location of the thalamus. Now thalamus again consists of cells and the fibers. So it has both cells and the fibers. So just like this, I make one big cells. So they represent the gray color, and then the fibers, connected fibers. So as a result, we can see again a gray color area and a white color area. Right now, what is the function of thalamus? So function of the thalamus, we can understand like this. Right now, earlier we have seen central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. When we consider peripheral nervous system, they bring information. One is coming from through the spinal cord nerve, spinal nerves. So that's a spinal cord, and the nerve located in the spine is called spinal nerve. And another type of nerve we can notice they are coming again from the different part of the body, and they're directly going to the brain. So these nerves are called cranial nerves. So spinal nerve. The other one is a cranial nerves. Spinal nerve and cranial nerves. When the spinal nerve and cranial nerves come into the brain, at the end, the thalamus act as a relay station. So relay station is something like that. If a signal is coming to this point and the signal is redistributed to relevant centers from this place, like a distributor. So relay, like in athletic meetings, relay race, the one passed the baton to the other one, and then that one passed baton to the other one. Like it's passing information and redistribution of the information. So it acts as a relay station. So you can also notice now, if the cranial nerves bring the information and spinal nerve bring the information, so the distribution of this information to the different places of the brain. So when you come to here, so okay, then okay, it should go to the sensory area. Okay, this should go to the motor area. So likewise, this function is done by the thalamus. So we can say it's a distributor of the information in the brain when it comes from the peripheral nervous system. So that's a main function of thalamus. So it's a distribution relay center of the nerve impulses coming from peripheral nerves to the central nerve. So information is coming through peripheral nerve, and the thalamus redistributed this information to the relevant place in the brain, especially to the cerebrum. So that's a main function of thalamus. Main function of thalamus. So it's better that we revise always the function of each area, like cerebrum, motor, sensory, associate area. And the thalamus is a relay station. Okay, now we are coming to see again how it looks like, because again and again we're going to recap, which is important for us that we can remember it better. Okay, right. So here again we can draw like this. So here it's a part of the midbrain, and this is the, let's get this pen, midbrain and pituitary, and here is the hypothalamus. Okay, here medulla oblongata, fons Veronii, midbrain, pituitary, hypothalamus. Now you see a blue color area. So I just mark all area now this. So here blue color area is the hypothalamus, thalamus. And here the white color area is the corpus callosum. And this is a hemisphere of the cerebrum. So it is located above midbrain, below corpus callosum. So location is above midbrain, beneath corpus callosum. So main function is it's a relay station redistributing the informations coming from peripheral nervous system to the cerebral cortex or to cerebrum. So just write as relay station. Okay, next is the hypothalamus. So again, we can see hypothalamus. So I draw it again, spinal cord. Just draw it like this. And that's the pituitary, midbrain, fons Veronii, medulla oblongata, and the brainstem. So then this is going like this. Cerebrum, cerebellum, and here we can see corpus callosum and the thalamus. And here again we can see the hypothalamus. So hypothalamus represent this part. So this part represents the hypothalamus, yellow color area. So let's see its location in the brain. So when you look thalamus, it is in front of the thalamus. and it is also linked with the pituitary gland and so here is the thalamus. It's in the front side of thalamus. Here's the front side, and hypothalamus is this one, and it is a link with anterior pituitary, and the back one, this one is a posterior pituitary, anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. So here is the thalamus. So this is the location of the hypothalamus, and hypothalamus is very important part of the brain because it has a lot of functions. It is doing a lot of functions, and we should not forget the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland are very closely linked with the blood vessels. The blood vessel is come, it make a very good capillary network. So I just highlight it like this. See, so the red color thing represent the blood vessels. So it has a very rich blood supply. As a result, the pituitary and hypothalamus coordinate many functions of our body. Okay, let's see what are the functions. Right, again, we're going to see location of hypothalamus. So this is hypothalamus, and this is a pituitary. So that's a thalamus. Functions. Right. Number one function, temperature regulations. So thermoregulation. So thermoregulation means keep the body temperature constant. Keep internal body temperature constant. So 37 Celsius degree. It is not going up and it is not going down. So it keep exactly at 37. This is called thermoregulation. And how this is done, we're going to learn in detail in the lesson homeostasis. So we just keep as the first function thermoregulation. Later, we're going to learn how hypothalamus is important and how it function to keep the temperature constant, thermoregulation. The second one is it has a special sensor which can detect thirst. And also we can link this to the osmoregulation. So we have learned osmoregulation in detail in excretion and kidney function. So there, what we learn, if the water level of the body increase or decrease, or solute level change, the osmoreceptors can detect these changes in the hypothalamus. After that, it can activate several functions, effectors, like if there is less water level, then thirst center increase person to drink water, and also kidney try to reabsorb water from the urine from the collecting duct, and the water level increase. So this thirst and osmoregulation is also controlled by the hypothalamus. So check, revise again your notes and videos to check osmoregulation. So it is done by hypothalamus. Other one is how we feel hungry. How we feel hungry is also controlled by hypothalamus. So it is called appetite. Appetite is the level of hunger. So when we want to eat something, it's again done by the hypothalamus. And when we fed, then appetite is decreased. Okay, next thing, this is called a fight or flight. Fight or flight functions. So fight or flight functions, this is again done by the hypothalamus. So hypothalamus is very closely connected to the pituitary gland. So this is anterior pituitary, this is posterior pituitary. Now this hypothalamus and pituitary gland very closely connected to the blood supply. So when there is a requirement for fight or flight, then hypothalamus and pituitary work together to release the hormone adrenaline. So adrenaline is the most important hormone which is responsible for fight and flight functions. So how it work? Usually from the stimulus come from externally, then hypothalamus release hormone, and then this hormone, so it's a hypothalamus. Now hypothalamus release hormones due to external stimulus. So this is the stimulus, and it release hormone, corticotropin releasing hormone. CRH, corticotropin releasing hormone. So corticotropin releasing hormone on the pituitary gland. Anterior pituitary gland.